Welcome back. Today we are going to talk about the Kiwi Ears Orchestra Lite. And of course, these are the 8BA, and similar to its bigger brother, the regular orchestra was 8BA also. And, despite the awkward way they wrote orchestra on the box there, the build is really the star of the show here. I mean, it is a stunning looking build, kind of 8BAs, beautiful resin, super clear, very solid build. I mean, very tight looking. It is a top-notch build, exactly what you're thinking about when you're willing to spend $250. Like, this build better be stunning, and this one is definitely one that is stunning, no doubt. So that is the box. Inside the box, you get a case, which is actually pretty nice, and you actually get a quite nice 4-core SPC cable. It's actually quite nice. A little on the thicker side compared to what you normally get as stock cables. It's, quite a nice looking silver cable there. You also get 3 pairs of tips, so that no doubt you'll be tip rolling to see which ones work good for you. So let's push this out of the way and kind of jump into it. We have a bunch of stuff to cover, and we'll start with the pros and the cons, right? You're looking for an 8BA set, a set that's $250. This one, I wouldn't say it's a home run slam dunk for everyone. I think this one caters towards kind of a specific type of person. And to begin with, I think if you're just in the market for an 8BA, I think this one is a well executed 8BA, and it does sound cohesive. It's actually more cohesive than BA timbre. If you're used to hearing BA sound a little sharper, a little faster, a little more off-colored, that is not what this one is. This one is 8BAs tuned very cohesively to sound more like one driver and a very natural presentation. So as I said, really minimal BA timbre there. Plus, it's safe tuning at both ends. So the sub bass is rolled off a little bit, the upper treble is a bit rolled off, and everything in the middle is kind of smooth and safe. And if you do have a bass button, you have a DAC amp with a bass button or a dongle, I would give that a shot. This one probably needs a couple dB right in the sub bass area. And this one does scale with sources. Again, it's an 8BA set. Give it a pristine, clean source. It will eat that up. So definitely scales with sources. And if it sounds a little smaller in your head, I would definitely switch your sources and try a different one. 8BA plus the build, plus that solid tuning, that really puts you, this is what $250 looks like, and this is sort of what $250 sounds like too. It's just a well-tuned 8BA set. It has a very much a point of view from the tuner who tuned it, and if it's the same tuner who tuned the orchestra, he is a well-known guy, and he's tuned lots of fantastic sets, and sort of no doubt this is one of them as well. So I don't know if it is the same exact person who tuned the original, but there are some bits in here that sort of make me think that this person is the same person, but I could be 100% wrong. And also, there's just not much competition for all BA sets at that price, right? There's more expensive all BA sets. There's a lot of cheaper ones, which are not quite at this level of sound quality. And because of at this $100 to $200 level, it's sort of hard to find really nice all BA sets. So on the con side, you do have to be aware it's 2023. That gap between BAs and dynamic drivers is really shrinking. I mean, dynamic drivers have made huge strides in sound quality and covering the full range of frequencies from sub bass all the way through really extended upper treble. They are definitely closing that gap, and you do have to consider that when you're spending this type of money on an all BA set. And of course, you have planers kind of at the other set, which are sort of expanding that gap, right? They were already extended. It's just a matter of bringing planers down to a more natural presentation, kind of the way this guy is. And as well, they are making strides in that area too. So is it too safe? Yeah, I think it's certainly general appealing, but it doesn't really hit you in the face with 8BAs of detail or sharp transients. It was really tuned to be cohesive and very natural, and that takes on one type of presentation. Some BA sets sort of go the other way, and they really kind of force detail, they force these sharp transients, and let you know how fast the BAs can be. This is not that one. It doesn't really smack you in the face with detail. It's a very natural, unforced presentation. So they chose a very safe, likable sound. Like I said, the bass in the upper treble, kind of like the name, it's just a hair light. and we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I think the sub bass is rolled off a little bit. That's going to not appeal to everyone. It will definitely appeal to quite a few people, but it is something to consider, that especially you're already looking at an 8BA, so you have to have some knowledge of what BAs can do as far as bass, and this one has a different presentation than some of the other ones that we'll talk about right now, right? So Orchestra Lite versus Lokahi, right? So Lokahi a couple years ago was a fantastic all BA set. It came out a little bit after the original orchestra did. And I will say that the Orchestra Lite is very much the mature adult. It's a very conservative, safe tuning. Lokahi was very much the teenager. It was a banger at both ends. It had a lot of bass and it had a lot of treble that hit you right across the face. Orchestra Lite is much more reserved, dialed back, a much smoother presentation. We'll kind of look at the graph, and you can kind of see the two paths that they took through all BAs. So Lokahi sort of definitely bumped up the bass. It was a very banging, mid-bass heavy, hit you right in the eardrum style of bass. Orchestra Lite, a much kind of a smoother, more reserved, a kind of more conservative version of bass shelf. Mids are kind of similar. And then you sort of see where Lokahi really took this upper route through the treble, and it's a lot of energy. It's a very energetic set. Orchestra Lite goes for this smoother, more relaxed, a very more refined, more mature looking tour through the treble, as opposed to Lokahi, which is sort of that younger teenager style. It's just a sort of bigger V, more energetic. It's quite a banger set. It's a great set. It's just not in the same style as Orchestra Lite. So sound and who should buy it. So I do think neutral heads, this is probably one that would kind of appeal to you. It does have a little upper mid bump, and I think that's really to just catch the vocals. It's definitely low pinna gain gang, right? So this is low pinna gain club, right? So if we look at where pinna gain is right there, so about 2.5K, that is probably maybe 5 dB above that. And you don't really find that too much in budget sets. They tend to be very closer to 10 dB, 9, 10, 11, even 12. Budget sets tend to bump that up a lot, and hope it doesn't get too shouty. This is very much a relaxed, chill version of pinna gain. 5 dB, very relaxed, just enough there to catch female vocals, catch instruments, and then sort of roll it out in a very nice, gentle way through the treble. That's kind of exactly what it sounds like. So, but do be aware that if you're used to a more budget style, high pinna gain, more of a V-shaped set, this one is really not that. So it does require just a little bit more volume if you're a low volume listener, especially on a better source. Like I said, a very clean, clear source. You get a bigger open sound while remaining very clean with that bass shelf, right? So that bass shelf, pretty conservative. It's a couple dB lower than maybe what you find in budget sets. But, it is there, and we'll cover that right now. So I do think on the bass, I think it is the point of consideration here, because there's not a lot of sub bass, but what they covered in the bass on the bass shelf through the mid bass is actually very, very well done. It's sort of a unique sound for me. You don't see too many sets that cover the mid bass as well as this one does, and then rolls off the sub bass. So on one hand, you get this really great bass shelf that really catches those lower instruments, those lower vocals, sounds great, and then where you're expecting to hear the drums go deep and rumble, it's not really there. So yeah, it's very odd to hear one side of it being done so well, and then the other side you sort of realize that this is going to work for certain genres of music, but it's not going to be working for all of them. So like I said, it's just a bit light on the drums and impact and depth. It's very much a neutral, right under the mids, that kind of bass style. It really keeps the bass very clean, and it really prevents a loss of detail. So without a big pinna gain area, trying to force more detail, leaving everything kind of natural, they really kept the bass at this sort of just enough to cover, so it sounds like there's bass there, but not to muddy up the mids at all, not to lose any detail in the mids. And I think that was actually a brilliant move. Perhaps it's the lower driver that they used here. Maybe it just wasn't all that great at sub bass, so they dialed it back a little bit. But, as far as keeping everything natural and unforced, I do think that was actually a very good move. Sub bass heads will not like that move, but if you're a mid-centric person, you very much will like that move. So Sunny in 75, like I said, these lower voices, these lower male vocals, they sound kind of full and they deep, and it just covers his voice kind of perfectly. It's actually really, really well done. And then as the song goes on and the balance kind of shifts towards that upper bit, or something like Running with the Devil, it all sounds very tight. The bass is actually really well done for a BA, but there's probably not enough meat there for rock. It's kind of borderline for that. I don't know. I was on the fence with it. I kept on listening to it. It just wasn't my favorite. There's a few genres that weren't my favorite on this set. Rock was definitely one of them, and we'll get to one in the mids. Perfect if your library doesn't need a heavy mid bass and you prefer those cleaner mids, right? This one very much has this focus in the mids. If you're a bass head, this one's probably not going to be for you. If you find your music you tend to listen right there in the mids, this one is probably more in line for you. So the mids, like I said, this one is the star and the focus of this set. You get this smooth, clean, refined, polished, no peaks, clean vocals above the bass is exactly what you notice on Sultans of Swing. So Dire Straits, that track, some people listen for it for the bass. What you notice right away are the vocals, kind of clean, clear, right weight to it. It's done very, very well. That bass is slightly below, safe treble, brings the mids right in focus, and that's sort of what you want in a mid-centric style set, and that's exactly what happens here. But then you sort of thinking about it, and what really drew me into this set are those quieter, less energetic moments. Those tracks on their Dire Straits, On Every Street. Such a fantastic song. And as soon as you slow things down and you really kind of get a more relaxed version, like I said, this signature is very relaxed. And when you have a track that matches that, it's really in the sweet spot. And that track, On Every Street by Dire Straits, even when it picks up at 3:30, such a beautiful song, a great rendering of that song on this set. Great source. You get a really nicely rendered version of that track. And those are the tracks, whether it's Dire Straits, Slowing It Down, Diana Krall, any of your kind of vocal, more relaxed style tracks. I think those are the ones that are right in the sweet spot of this. Like I said, those genres, that can cover quite a bit, but I think the more energetic it got, the more sort of off-center it was from the sweet spot of this. And so right here, so at the other end, so Above and Beyond did a remix of Madonna's What It Feels Like to Be a Girl for a Girl. That upper mid energy is really enough to carry her voice, and it sounds really good. Like I said, there's just a little bump there. It carries her voice. It's already clear. Very, very well done. But as the track goes on, you sort of realize that there's just a little bit of depth missing on the bottom end to really counterbalance what's happening at the upper end. And that just happens, on these more energetic tracks. And it's just kind of noticeable. And I said, you got to be really careful about what genres you're taking on this set. Or a track like this. So even taking female vocals and slowing them down, London Grammar's Oh Woman, Oh Man, it tends to show the nitpick. And like I said, this one doesn't hit you over the head with detail. It ticks tons of boxes. It's got lots of detail. Sounds great, no peaks, very natural, smooth, refined, all those things. Ticks tons of boxes, but some of the micro details that you're expecting to hear from a BA right in the beginning of that track, a little harder to hear. And considering the BA count that it's got 8 BAs, you're kind of expecting to be more and more detailed, lots of micro details, but it's not really tuned in that way to force those forward. It's just a very, very natural, relaxed presentation. So do take that into consideration. And the treble, very much like the bass, the parts that it covers, like I said, that upper mid, lower treble, very, very well. It's super refined all the way through the parts that it covers, and then you get to the end part where you're expecting some BA air, and that very upper treble is just very, very safe, and they tune it down. Again, perhaps the driver that wasn't the best part of that driver, and they rolled it off, so it didn't really color the music in a way that would not fit in with the rest of the signature. So I would say that the upper treble, it's there. It's just really a hair too safe to bring the recordings to life and to really tickle your ears like really extended upper treble-ish sets do. This one, just like the bass, the parts that it covers through the treble, very, very nice. But then you're waiting for that last bit at the end, and just a bit too safe on that bit. So stage last bit, like everything else, it's really good, just not going to make you say wow, right? So $250, I was expecting to be wowed, a little bigger. I think the height and the width are actually really good. The depth could be a little bit better. Again, a lot of it goes back to this upper treble bit. If you roll that back a little bit, it just doesn't sound as big as it really could sound. And that's sort of what shows through here. You know, everything else sets up the stage to be very nice. You get this great width and depth, nicely rendered. But that last bit that would really make it sound expansive and big and a really nice experience is just a hair short, a hair safe. So that's what I got on Orchestra Lite. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I will see you next time.